Hey everyone, before we start the show, I just want to get some plugs out of the way. If you enjoy this podcast and you're into wrestling, check out the Nerds and Marks podcast or Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. If you're not getting your fill on movie and entertainment discussion, then check out the Entertainment Buffet podcast. If you want to dive into the world of video games, I highly recommend the Darkcast by my friends over at darkstation.com. Listen to them cover important topics and interview men and women from all over the industry. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello everybody and welcome back if you've been a long-time listener, or welcome to Shelved if it's your first time. Well, we're back after a bit of a hiatus from the holidays, so here's what happened. At our job, we have a big holiday sale every year, and we always, our hours go crazy because we usually sell a lot of stuff, and there's only 20 of us working there, so it's a lot of late hours, late nights. This year was more so than any other year, where we were doing 70-hour weeks every week through the end of November to through December, up until Christmas. And we managed to fucking crush it and get everything done before Christmas, which we never thought we were going to be able to do. And, it took a toll. Like, we were all just fucking dead tired every day, and just trying to get through the day. And I was trying to get some podcast content done in that time, but literally we were working Monday through Saturday, which normally we only work Monday through Friday, and Sunday was literally the only day. And it was like, all right, I'm going to record tomorrow. I got the day off. And then it's like, oh, but now I have to do all the stuff I wasn't able to do during the week because I was at work all night. So unfortunately, the podcast ended up going on a bit of a hiatus. And this year, as in we're in 2018 now, I want to do better about having a bunch of content banked for the holidays, just because I knew it was coming, but it hit us harder than it had ever hit us before, and I had some personal stuff going on before the holidays that kind of cut into that time as well. So, the podcast didn't end the way I wanted it to end last year. I was hoping to have more content and be doing more with it during that time, but unfortunately, life happens, and I appreciate everybody who's been sticking around. I see we may have gotten some new listeners during that time. I was still checking the downloads every day, and I had a couple days where it's like, oh, somebody looks like they downloaded, there's one download on every episode. So we might have some new listeners around. So, hi to you, and thank you for downloading. Be sure to review us on iTunes. Give us that 5-star review. That's what helps us out the most. I haven't checked the reviews to see if there's any new ones yet, so I should probably do that soon. But welcome back. We're in 2018. 2017 is in the books. We are coming up on 1 year of this podcast. We first launched on January 16th of last year. I'm not sure what day January 16th falls on. I assume it will not be one of the days I normally upload a podcast, but being as I've kind of been uploading sporadically or erratically over the last few months anyway, I'm still probably going to post on the 16th, which is going to be our 1 year anniversary. What I am looking to do is a Q&A, maybe streamed live on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, whichever is the easiest way to do it. If I have to go to Twitch, I can do that too. And just take some questions. The only problem is I'm worried that, some of you guys aren't going to show up and ask some questions. So if you have some questions about the podcast, about movies, about anything really, whatever you want to talk about, but email them. Tweet them at us. The Twitter is at Shelved Podcast. The email is shelvedfilmpodcast@gmail.com. Send us some questions. I want to do a live Q&A to kind of celebrate the 1 year and talk about the first year of the podcast and just do a recap and where I'm at with things and what you guys were able to help me accomplish. And I'm so very much appreciative of everybody who listens. And It's weird getting friends and family involved listening now. I know my dad and my stepmom are now listening, which, hey, guys. And whenever I go down and see family, because the show's posted on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, Shelved Podcast. And everybody's like, oh, I've been listening. Like, it's super crazy and super cool. And I appreciate all the support from everybody listening, friends, family, strangers, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll talk more about that on the 1-year episode. But it's kind of our first way back into the podcast in 2018. I thought it would be fun to take a look back at my top 10 movies of 2017. Now, this will be a list that will probably change throughout early 2018 as I have not seen everything that I want to see. There's still some big glaring movies that I feel like I need to watch, especially now that the Golden Globes just happened. We're entering award season. Some of these movies have been nominated for stuff and I haven't seen them yet. And I always try to watch any of the Best Picture nominees at the Oscars. So I will definitely be checking some of those out. I should point out this is a car cast today. It's a top 10 car cast. I don't know if anyone's been hearing all the ruckus. I usually preamble being like, hey, I'm in the car today. But yeah, so top 10 car cast. Yeah, so first I'm going to do my top 10, and then we'll kind of get into some of our regular mini episode business of talking about what's going to be happening. And if you've listened to the last few episodes, you probably know what I'm still planning on for the next episode. But let's get into it. So first, I'm going to have some honorable mentions. These are movies that I saw this year or last year that I really loved, but I haven't gotten around to, or that just didn't make my top 10 for whatever reason. There's like one or two of these I could see like on rewatches maybe rising up to the top 10, because some of the movies on my top 10 list weren't on my top 10 list until I saw them a couple more times. I'm like, yeah, you know what, like that movie was really good, and we'll talk about that. But so my honorable mentions here. My most recent one, which I watched last night, was The Disaster Artist, which I have never seen The Room. I have seen bits and pieces of The Room. I know the story of The Room. Now I really want to read the Disaster Artist book, although I know the movie takes some liberties with the material, as movies do. But the Disaster Artist was very good. Everybody was fucking on top of their game. It was really well acted. If James Franco wins the Best Actor category for the Oscars, I would be fine with that. He's very good in the movie. Honestly, I think I might be in the minority thing. I think I like Dave Franco a little more in this movie. And he would not be my pick overall. Overall, if you want to ask me who I want to win Best Actor, it would probably be Hugh Jackman for Logan. But I'm sure he's going to be nominated for Greatest Showman, and that's what he was nominated for at the Golden Globes. And I feel like it's one of those things where, like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio did The Departed and Blood Diamond in the same year, but he was only nominated for Blood Diamond because, it's for both, but we're just going to nominate the more recent one. And I feel like with Hugh Jackman, Greatest Showman is that. But I feel like that does it a disservice, because let's say he wins and people are like, oh, he won for The Greatest Showman. It's like, no, he kind of won for both, but that was just the movie they chose to nominate. And I haven't seen The Greatest Showman. Maybe he's great in that too. But anyway. Yeah, so the Disaster Artist was a very good movie, very funny. It's definitely classified as a comedy. To me, it's way more of a dramedy. This is truly the story of these two friends, Tommy and Greg, real life people, the guys who made The Room. And it's a story about their friendship, and as much as it is a story about them making the worst movie of all time, and or what is considered the worst movie of all time, because The Room is not the worst movie of all time, like, let's be honest. But The Disaster Artist, it was really good. It was the movie everybody was saying all the end of the year that you have to see this movie, and I finally got around to seeing it last night, and I loved it. I thought it was really great. Unfortunately, it just didn't crack the top 10 for me, but this is one, as I said, I feel like on future viewings it could bump off maybe something lower on my list. But as it is, I feel like 2017 was just an amazing year for movies. There's just so much good stuff out there, and so much stuff that spoke to me personally this year, or or in the genres that I love, that it just unfortunately did not make the list for me. But still an amazing movie. Highly recommended. My next honorable mention is Thor Ragnarok. Really funny movie. It was incredibly hilarious. Really entertaining, maybe some of the most fun I had with a movie, but it didn't make my list. There were a lot of comic book movies this year. This year had the most comic book movies, where it looks like next year might have the least comic book movies. But yeah, it was really great. A lot of fun. I laughed a lot. I keep thinking about some of the jokes And if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, like, what are you doing? Just go see it. It's so funny. Chris Hemsworth at the top of his game. Tom Hiddleston is always fun as Loki. He's one of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe. And just the inclusion of Jeff Goldblum, who they just let be Jeff Goldblum, is amazing. The character of Korg, I couldn't stop laughing at, and the director doing the voice for him was great and hilarious and so funny. Thor Ragnarok, they just, those first two Thor movies, like, they're okay. Like, I like them more than most people. I actually like the second one a lot more than the first one. But they're both just kind of like, they're a little boring. They are what they are. But this one, they're just like, screw it. Let's just make the funniest movie we can. And that's what they did. And it turned out to be really funny and really successful. And that immigration song was perfectly weaving into the movie at two separate points. But yeah, so Thor Ragnarok, another honorable mention. My next honorable mention, another comic book movie, Wonder Woman. I've never been a big Wonder Woman fan. DC obviously has been putting out some of the worst comic book movies in recent history. But Wonder Woman was their first big success, and it was a great fucking movie. And, it has a weak third act the way a lot of origin story comic book movies do. But I really enjoy the entire movie. I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, or Gal Gadot. I don't know how to say her name. I've had this discussion on Twitter. Chris Pine was really great in the movie. A lot of great performances, and it visually looks great. Like the No Man's Land scene, I actually got emotional as, that was happening. And it's such a good moment. It's such an important film. But to me, it's just like I was way more entertained by some other movies this year. And I do think it got slightly overrated with its 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. We're like, look, I think it's a great film. I think it's an important film, but it's got some weaknesses just like any other comic book movie does. And I definitely feel like it got a little bit of a bump for how important it is for women to have this female superhero, which is great, and it's a fucking perfect movie for that, but it loses some entertainment value in the end for me. And there's a couple weird moments throughout the movie, like editing wise, but I mean, I have very few complaints about that film. I own it on Blu-ray now. I can't wait to watch it again. But yeah, so Wonder Woman is my next honorable mention. And my final honorable mention is Jordan Peele's Get Out, which it took me a long time to watch this movie, but it's so good. It definitely went in a I don't want to spoil this movie, but it goes in a direction that I did not expect. You kind of get little hints of what's going on throughout the movie, but there's definitely like a mystery, and the twist of what that mystery is, I don't think anyone would see coming. But it's so well acted, so well performed, so well structured for Jordan Peele's first movie, and it was very successful. I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. Get Out is a terrific horror film, or like, I don't even like calling it a horror film. I hate that it gets called a comedy. It's not a comedy. Like, yeah, it has some funny moments, but it's not enough to classify it as a comedy, in my opinion. But he calls it what did he say? Like a social thriller. And I love that, and that's the perfect way to describe that movie. But it really plays with, kind of race relations in a very interesting way, and, a way a lot of people I'm sure can relate to. And I love the movie. And the main actor, whose name escapes me, I know his first name is David, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he is great, and if he won Best Actor, I would totally be happy with that as well. I thought he was fantastic in the movie. Everybody was fantastic in the movie. It was very entertaining and very surprising, which surprise is often what I'm looking for in new movies, because you don't get a lot of that. But that's going to be my honorable mentions for the year. Now, before I jump into my top 10, I just want to talk about some of the movies that I haven't seen this year that I still want to see. So just a quick list of, like, hey, you might not see these on the list, and that's just because I haven't seen them yet, but these are the ones I'm still really wanting to see. So running down my list, I got Dunkirk, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Baby Driver, which I did see half of, and honestly I don't think will make my top 10, but probably would have been more of an honorable mention. Mother, which just looks fucking crazy. Brigsby Bear, which I keep hearing a lot about from the SNL guy, and I hear it's really good, so I want to check that out. and Murder on the Orient Express, just because I know that story from the Agatha Christie books, and so I kind of know how it ends already, but I love murder stuff like that, so I really want to check that movie out. But those are some of the movies I have not seen that will not make my top 10. I'm sure there are more movies that I'm missing, and if I do my list and you think there's a movie that I should really see that came out in 2017, be sure to send it over to me, because I will watch it. I want to know more about what I missed. So all right, let's get into it. Let's get into my top 10 of 2017. And even now, looking at my list, I feel like there's a couple here in the bottom that could shift around a bit, but some of these are still pretty fresh in my mind, so on a rewatch they might go up. But why don't we get into it? So starting with number 10, I have the Lego Batman movie. This movie came out really early in the year, if I recall. It might have been an early summer movie, but I love Batman. I love the Lego stuff. The Lego movie is really great, and the Lego Batman movie, I think, is even better. They play with the Batman mythos in a way that you would never expect Warner Brothers to do, and the way they poke fun at all Batman, like from Adam West Batman to Batman v Superman Batman, like they go for it. And the way they even poke fun at DC, like I knew I was gonna love this movie. Like as the opening logos are coming up and like the Warner Brothers logo comes out, you hear Will Arnett, who plays Batman, narrating the logos, and he's like, or they show the DC logo and he's like, DC, the house that Batman built. Yeah, Superman, come at me, bro. And like just stuff like that. And like when they ask him like, oh, who's your greatest arch nemesis, and he's like, Superman. Like nothing is sacred in the Batman movie. They take a shot at everything. They even take a shot at Suicide Squad. Like it is such a joy, and it does get bogged down being a 29-year-old adult, where in the end, the message of the movie is very much forced in for kids, and that's great, for them. For me, at this point, it's just like, oh, all right, we got to get through this stuff. But the movie is very funny. I've seen it twice now, and every time I watch it, it just gets more entertaining. It's so witty, which I love in my humor, and I think about this movie all the time. It was a lot of fun, and just being a big comic book fan and a big Batman fan, honestly, it was the best Batman movie that came out this year, and maybe in the last, since The Dark Knight Rises, and maybe even before The Dark Knight Rises. But Lego Batman, my number 10. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot higher on my list, I gotta say, when the year started. It has dropped down significantly. Honestly, for a while, it was my number 1. But as more stuff came out, it dropped down my list, and it was sitting at 5 for a while, and then in the end, it was like, I have so many other movies to put above it. But Lego Batman, and I feel like that's because this one could go down more on rewatches. Like, oh yeah, I really love this movie, but it is a kid's movie, so some of that stuff's gonna hold it back every time I watch it. But yeah, so that's my number 10, Lego Batman the movie. Number 9, which is my most recent watch, and is low for a couple of reasons, mostly being wasn't as big a fan of the original as a lot of other people. But my number 9 is Blade Runner 2049. I don't know how to say this director's name, so it's like Denis Villeneuve or whatever. He directed this. He directed Prisoners, The Arrival. Not The Arrival. Arrival. That's a totally different movie. Sicario. He has made only incredible movies. I haven't seen Prisoners. He also did this movie called Enemy, which people are kind of mixed on because it's very metaphorical and stuff like that. But he is quickly becoming the best director in the business. I will watch anything this guy does. And Blade Runner 2049 took everything about the original Blade Runner and made it better. I loved the movie. It's a little slow. It's a little long at like 2.5 hours, and the pacing could be better. But that's Blade Runner, and it just gives you more time to sit in this world that is amazing. And he's just building on a world that's already been created and by Ridley Scott in the 80s. And that is the thing that I love about the original Blade Runner, is the look of the world and just the world they create. And the thing I didn't like about the original Blade Runner was the story. I thought, like, for the most part, a lot of the performances in the original Blade Runner are not that great. The story I don't connect with as well. And I was actually recently hearing that Harrison Ford and the lead actress in the movie, whose name escapes me, something Young, they did not get along. And to me, that made a lot of sense because, like, the so-called love story in the movie never really made sense to me. And now hearing that they never got along to begin with makes it's like, oh, okay, like, now that makes sense. That's why that didn't connect with me, because it wasn't connecting with them. And I hear Harrison Ford was just very difficult on set. And there's also like 7 cuts of that movie. But Blade Runner 2049 improves on all of that. Ryan Gosling, I thought, is really great. He's an actor I always just kind of never really paid much attention to until the last few years, and now he's kind of become one of my favorites, especially after The Nice Guys and now Blade Runner 2049. He's great. He's great in the movie, and I love that there is, like, spoiler, I guess, minor spoiler for the first, like, 5 minutes of the movie. There's no fucking around. Like, in the whole first movie, there's, like, is Deckard a replicant or whatever, and to me, honestly, that never fucking mattered to that movie. But in this one, they don't waste any time. Like, 5 minutes in, you're like, yeah, Ryan Gosling's a replicant, and he hunts down other replicants, and it's cool, and it really takes that story to some interesting places. And honestly, Blade Runner 2049 is a love story, way more than the original Blade Runner was. And I think it's better off for it. It's not like this big action movie that the trailers would have you believe, and if you saw the original Blade Runner, you should already know that. But the action scenes that are there are really great. I loved Blade Runner 2049, and I can't wait to see it again. But it's definitely a movie you kind of have to plan your day around because it is so long. If you really want to watch it in one sitting, it's a commitment. But it's a commitment that's worth it. And the movie didn't get enough recognition at the box office, so I highly recommend checking it out on Blu-ray, which it's a beautiful fucking movie. So if you have Blu-ray or if you have 4K, this is a movie for you to watch. Moving on to my number 8, I have Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Now, the first Kingsman, I think, was a lot of surprise to people. It's a fun comic book movie. It's a take on the James Bond franchise like you haven't seen before. It's kind of like if Austin Powers parodying James Bond, but a little more serious and a little more fun with a lot of stylized action. And Matthew Vaughn is easily one of the best directors of action I have ever seen. Like, the way he shoots an action scene is just unlike any other movie. And Kingsman has a lot of amazing action scenes, and like right from the beginning, this one is no different from the first. The first has that big standout church sequence, which was incredible. This movie doesn't have a scene like that, but the action scenes it has are incredible. And featuring Elton John as like a key player to the story is a lot of fun and goes some interesting places. And it's a lot funnier than the first one. And like, to me, I put it kind of like, I think the first one is better, but I do put them kind of on par. Like, the second one doesn't do it better. It just kind of does it more of the same. But more of the same of that is good because the first one is still awesome. And that's kind of where I stand at with this one. I'm trying to think if I have... the introduction of the Statesman, which, you know, like the American version of the Kingsman, is really awesome. And I guess he's talking about doing a third Kingsman movie to kind of cap that one off as a trilogy, and then doing a Statesman spinoff, which I would totally be down for. One of the big downsides is Channing Tatum is in the movie, but his character gets taken out of commission pretty early on, and he doesn't actually get to do much. But all the other actors they have in the movie are just as fun and just as good for replacements. So that movie I really enjoyed. The Kingsman: Golden Circle. I had a lot of fun with, and it had some kind of fucked up moments with the villain, played by, what's her name? Not Jodie Foster, but, the redhead. That she's in a lot of stuff. Wow, I can't remember. And, what else was she fucking in? Clarice, isn't that yet? No, that was Jodie Foster. The actress who's just like Jodie Foster. I'm driving and I can't look this up. I'm totally blanking, but if it comes back to me, I'll fill that in. But it's a great movie, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So what was that? Number 8? Yeah. So number 7 is a smaller movie that I just kind of saw the trailer on YouTube one day. It just kind of passed, and it's a great trailer. And the movie turned out to be really great as well, and that is Ingrid Goes West. So this is Aubrey Plaza from Parks and Rec and Elizabeth Olsen from The Avengers. and a lot of other stuff. Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, and all that. Who Elizabeth Olsen is kind of becoming one of my favorite actresses in the business. She's really great, and she's really great in this movie. I never watched Parks and Rec, so I don't know a lot about Aubrey Plaza. I've seen her in a couple things, and I've seen bits of Parks and Rec with her, obviously, because like this show has been memed so much, it's kind of hard to avoid any of that stuff. But Ingrid Goes West I think is a very important film for our generation, and is a look at the dangers of social media and the way people become addicted or obsessed with, like, in this movie in particular, it's Instagram stars, where Aubrey Plaza is clearly an unhinged woman, and her the movie opens with like her attacking this girl at her wedding, and they said like, oh, you know, they only met like once, and she just followed her on Instagram and stuff, and then she gets like committed, and when she gets out, it turns out that her mom has passed away, and she inherits like a bunch of money from her mom, and so she is kind of just like floating at home, and then gets obsessed with this Instagram star from California and decides to take that money and move out to California and try to like get closer to this girl. And it kind of shows you the dangers of Instagram from both ends, or not the dangers, because from the other end it's a very first world thing, but it shows you how people like, so you see somebody obsessed with Instagram, and then you see somebody who is the Instagram star and has the stresses of having to post every day and show that they're living this life that, you know, everyone thinks they're living, even though they might not be as happy with it as the world sees. And it's a really good, interesting movie. The ending is almost haunting in a way, where it kind of starts to go the way you might expect when, you know, shit goes south. But where it leaves the character, it's almost, I don't want to say it's like a happy ending, but it's not a bad ending, but it's a real interesting look at social media, and I don't want to like spoil the ending, because I highly recommend checking this one out. And definitely watch the trailer, because it's a fun trailer. I just like the way they edit it and the music and stuff. And O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son, who played Ice Cube in Straight Outta Compton, is also in the movie, and he's very good. Everybody is very good in the movie, and I love that. It honestly could be higher on my list, but there's just so much other stuff that I loved this year. But Ingrid Goes West, highly recommend. For me, it's kind of my introduction to Aubrey Plaza, so I'll check out some more stuff from her. So moving on to number 6. My number 6 movie is It, the Stephen King adaptation. So I watched the original It right before this movie, and I had seen bits and pieces of it over the year, never found the original scary, and I watched the original right before this, and I thought it was very bad, really boring. There was some decent moments in the movie, but overall it's a really bad TV movie, and it's kind of like nostalgia is what keeps that movie going, because holy shit. But this new one, I know the real book, this movie made me a Stephen King fan like no other Stephen King movie has, and I know it's pretty different from the book, but they also are more faithful than the TV movie. I really loved this movie. I am nervous for part 2 because the adult story is always the more boring part of it. But this movie was great. Was it Bill Skarsgård is amazing as Pennywise. Like, even just his opening scene with Georgie, and him luring him into the sewer. And like, I love that they don't hide away from the violence. It is a hard R-rated movie. Like, in the opening moments of the movie, slight spoiler, you see Pennywise bite off Georgie's arm, and they don't fucking shy away from it. Like, here's a kid with arterial spray shooting out of his arm as he gets dragged into a sewer, and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, this is the way this movie needed to happen, and all of the kids are very good in the movie. It has an amazing look. The director, I know this was originally going to be directed by the, what was that, True Detective guy, Cary Fukunaga, but this director who took over, and I covered that original Cary Fukunaga script on the show, and I loved that script, but the movie was also, I think, more cohesive and just a better ending and more true to the book, and I loved it. I am very excited for part 2. It is probably my favorite horror movie, and like fucking since that Evil Dead remake, which is a really weird sentence, but I loved it, and if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It's very well done, very good modern day horror film, which there's not a lot of those. So all right, that's my bottom half of my list. Let's just do a quick little rundown before we get into the top 5. So number 10, the Lego Batman movie. Number 9, Blade Runner 2049. Number 8, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Number 7, Ingrid Goes West. And number 6 is It. All right, so now we're going to move into the top 5. So these are my 5 favorite movies of 2017. And I assume my list will be quite different from a lot of people's lists. I haven't seen a lot of these nominated movies like The Shape of Water, which I hear is very good. Lady Bird and all this stuff that's getting nominations. I still need to see all that stuff. But moving into my number 5 is John Wick 2. I loved John Wick. They just don't make action movies like this anymore. I love a good shoot 'em up, and I love Keanu Reeves. Like, The Matrix is in my top 10 movies of all time. And he is perfect for this movie. He's very great because he's kind of just this unassuming guy who can actually kick ass, even though he's in his 50s still. He's so fucking good in the movie. The first one is super great. It's very simple, and it's one of those movies that says a lot by actually saying very little. Like, you get introduced to this crazy world of assassins and you see how things work, but they're not stopping to explain everything to you. Things are just happening and you're picking up on it. And the second one does a lot more of that. So like in the first one, you learn of the hotel, the Continental, where no business can be conducted, and the gold coins and stuff like that. And that's kind of it. And just this world of assassins. And in the second one, they introduced the markers. They introduced like the High Council and stuff like that. But at its core, both of these movies are still just revenge plots with some amazing badass action. They are the perfect movies to just throw on when you need something that like you don't want to pay a lot of attention to, but will be looking up at every now and then. And the first one is definitely a better movie. Like, it's tight. The story is really simple, and it's so well crafted. And the second one is like on par with the first one, but they have a lot more stylish direction. They got a little bit more money, so they can do a little more. And this movie was great. I put it honestly on par with the first one, but the first one is just slightly better. But I can't wait for the third one, which comes out next year, I believe, which is so annoying having to wait that long. But I'm very excited to see how they end it. And they're also talking about a TV series, which I would watch. There's a comic series that I want to read. Just give me more of that world and those characters. I wish there was like 20 of these movies. But John Wick, just a real fucking action tour de force, and has one of my favorite load-up scenes in any movie. Like, I love scenes where people are just getting equipment, and like the way they do it, where he's like, yeah, I need like a main course and something for dessert, and like the main course is a shotgun and dessert is throwing knives and stuff like that. Like, and just the load-up scene and him checking out the guns, I love it. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie. I don't know, I love a good load-up scene, and this one has one of the best ever. So okay, my number 4 is Logan. This movie, I was kind of unsure how I felt about it in theaters. I loved it, like I really loved it, but when they introduce when it becomes a comic book movie halfway through is where it almost lost me, where I'm like, oh, now he's got to fight another Wolverine. Like, I didn't need that. But then I was listening to a podcast where they really laid out the fucking in-your-face metaphors of, oh, the younger version represents the more animal side of himself, and the fact that it's his daughter who kills him, it's the love of his child killing the inhumane animal side of him. And I'm just like, fuck, that is really good. So Logan is a fucking incredible movie. It proves that comic book movies can be more than just big CGI fucking insane movies. Like, it's a very small cast as far as like actual mutant characters go. It's just Hugh Jackman, the kid, and Patrick Stewart, and it's incredible. The movie is very emotional. Like, it's a fucking comic movie that can make you cry, and the only reason it can is because we had like 16 years or whatever it was of Hugh Jackman playing this character that he played very well, that everybody loved, and he was like perfectly cast as. And it's just something you can't get from any other comic book movie at this time. You know, you'd be getting closer with like Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, but even he hasn't played Iron Man as long as Hugh Jackman was Wolverine. And you know, it's kind of a bummer that he may never do it again. Like now that Disney owns Fox, it was always like, hey, you know, we really want Hugh Jackman in the Avengers, and he wanted to do it, so it's the only way he'd come back and do it. But at this point, it's like, do you do that? Do you bring back this old man who doesn't have all these years left to play this character ahead of him, or do you just recast? And I feel like they will just recast and be like, sorry, but this is kind of the way it has to be, and everybody will be mad, and then they'll understand when they see the movie. But Logan it's amazing. I really want to watch the black and white version. I haven't done that yet. Like, I'm kind of loving that that's becoming a thing where, like, hey, this movie is very much a noir movie, so we're going to add a black and white version. I think that's really cool, and I still want to watch that version. But Logan is incredible, but unfortunately falls just shy of my number 3 movie, which is also a comic book movie, and I never thought that this one would be as high on the list as it was until I saw it like 4 times. But that movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I think everybody loves the first Guardians. It was kind of a surprise hit. It was like, oh, this really obscure fucking comic book franchise that no one's really even heard of, and they're making a movie about it. And then it turned out to be amazing. James Gunn is a fantastic director, and, you know, it had the hook of the 70s, 80s pop music soundtrack, and everyone was anticipating Guardians 2. And when I first saw it, like the first time I saw it, I was like, I like this movie a lot. I think the first one is better. And I still think the first one is better. But the more I see the second one, I'm like, oh, man, there's like a lot more to this movie than I noticed. There's like just a lot of little things. Like at the beginning of the movie, Rocket steals these batteries, and that's kind of what sets the plot of the movie on. And then at the end of the movie, when they're making a bomb, you notice he uses those batteries he stole. Like everything in this movie has its place. And a lot of complaints where there's too many jokes in this one, and I do kind of agree. There are some jokes that don't land or some that feel forced, but there's also like there are so many jokes, and a lot of them are really funny, and the cast was great in the first one, and they're only better here. It is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. There is so much color, and like there's an amazing scene that's just Gamora just sitting on Ego's planet, like towards the end of the movie. And it's just like this landscape shot of this beautiful alien landscape. And like, honestly, it would be the best screensaver for any computer. And it's just a scene of her sitting, like, not to mention the opening scene where they're fighting a giant squid alien and it's literally vomiting rainbow colors at them. And it's just an incredible looking sequence. And the movie just looks amazing. And like the story is a lot deeper than I ever thought. Like the more I see it, and you know, it has its cliche moments, but their cliches done so fucking well. And the story of, you know, choosing your family, like the family you choose versus the family you actually have, and the story about who's your real father, the one who raised you or the one who gave you life. And it had a lot of touching moments, like more so than the first one, I would even say. And the music, the first time I watched the movie, the soundtrack didn't do a lot for me because I was actually familiar with a lot of the songs in the first one, and in the second one I didn't know like a good chunk of the soundtrack. But as I've watched it and as I've listened to the soundtrack a lot more, I actually like the soundtrack quite a bit. I still like the soundtrack in the first one better. But I think the soundtrack in the second one is used better. Like in the first one, it was just like, oh, let's just have these songs. There's not really rhyme or reason to a lot of them that, you know, maybe there is a deeper meaning that I haven't picked up on yet. But it is more just like a gimmick. And in this one, they take the gimmick and incorporate it a lot better. So like, while I don't like the songs as much, even though they are songs I like now, I think they're used better in the movie than the first one used its soundtrack. And yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it just has so many memorable scenes. The scene with Yondu and with the arrow and Rocket while they're fucking taking out all the bad guys on the ship to come a little bit closer is fucking such a great sequence. And if this movie doesn't even get nominated for special effects, I'm going to be so upset, because it is just a fucking amazing looking movie and some of the best special effects I've ever seen. But honestly, the special effects could lose to the next movie on my list, which is Star Wars The Last Jedi. Holy shit, where do I even begin with this one? This movie is being fucking ripped apart online. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'll admit, the first time I saw it, I came out of the movie and I was like, that was a weird fucking Star Wars movie. And I remember Rian Johnson, the director and writer, said a long time ago, like, hey, this is going to be a weird Star Wars movie. And as I walked out of the theater, I was like, boy, was he fucking right. But on my second viewing, I fucking love the movie. It's weird that a Star Wars movie is not my number one, which I think, honestly, The Force Awakens wasn't my number one either, because I had some minor problems with that movie. I have some minor problems with this movie. But, like, I don't have the problems that a lot of other people seem to have. Like, all right, I guess I just have to kind of, like, spoiler for The Last Jedi for the next, like, 5 minutes. I love that they killed Snoke. Like, I definitely want to know more about the character. Mostly I want to know how him and Kylo Ren kind of got to be hooked up together and how, like, the First Order came around to be with them. I want to know more about that stuff, but I love the idea of they just fucking killed him. And honestly, like, if you think back to The Empire Strikes Back, like, we know now, like, we all know who he was. We've seen the prequels, we've read the books and stuff like this. We all know now. But when The Empire Strikes Back came out, all there was 2 movies. And they didn't know fucking dick about the Empire back when that movie came out. Like, you just saw the scene of him in the hologram, and you're like, oh shit, that's the Emperor. Like, we've heard him mentioned, and that's all we know about him. And nobody gave a fuck who he was back then. But because Star Wars has become what it has become, and there were like 20 years of novels expanding on the universe that all got tossed out for now new stories, you know, people just know too much, and they're not willing to just sit back and enjoy the movie. And there's like petitions out there saying that this movie needs to be struck from the canon because they don't like the way Luke Skywalker was treated. And it's like, what? Do you just want Luke to become another Jedi training Jedi? Like, we've seen that. We've seen that in the books. It's not interesting. And, like, those books aren't going anywhere. You can go back and read those if you still have them. Like, the fact that people are like, oh, they don't count anymore. Like, who fucking cares? Like, if you can read the book and you love it, then just fucking read it and love it. Like, hey, look, remember in Star Trek when they had alternate timelines with the reboot? Guess what? Star Wars has an alternate timeline. There, you can still enjoy your books. One is one timeline, and now the movies are another. And I'm still reading those books. Like, there was a lot I haven't read. I want to get to the new Jedi Order series, so I'm still reading that shit. Like, I don't care if it doesn't count anymore. It's one way to take Star Wars, and they're taking it a different way, and we don't even know how this ends. And I understand the idea that, like, they don't seem to have a roadmap. They're just like, hey, JJ made his movie, Rian Johnson made his movie, and they didn't really say, like, where this movie needs to end. Like, maybe there is more that we know, but as far as we know, they keep saying is like, hey, just make your movie. And Rian Johnson said, you know, he saw that the story was as such that Kylo Ren doesn't need Snoke anymore. And I love that. Like, I love where this movie leaves Kylo Ren. And I will say that scene in the Red Room where they kill Snoke and then have the back-to-back lightsaber fight is one of my favorite moments in a Star Wars movie ever. And then I love the Battle of Crate, and when the Millennium Falcon shows up and is flying through the planet and they're playing that fucking song from the original movie when they're fighting the TIE fighters. I fucking love that moment. Like, when that music hits and then when that Porg hits the window, I'm just fucking so excited. Honestly, the Porgs, you know, they had slightly too much Porg in the movie. I like the Porgs, and the more, like, the Porg gave us the funniest scene where Chewbacca was going to eat them, and I love where they're stomping on the lightsaber, and the ones looking in the end, like, oh, fuck, that Porg's going to kill that other Porg. You know, I was fine with the Porgs. Like, clearly there for kids. I thought it was a little much when they're flying around in the battle, and the Porgs are flying around the Millennium Falcon, but honestly, it's fucking cute and funny and whatever. But I love the movie. I love the ending of, like, Luke and Kylo's showdown, and I think it's awesome that Luke is one with the Force and where that's gonna go for the next one. Like, guaranteed we will see a Luke Skywalker Force ghost. Like, come on. And fucking Yoda was in the movie. Like, I ended up loving the movie. Like, did it do some weird things, like the Princess Leia Superman moment? I was totally fine with. Like, she creates a bubble around her with the Force and then pulls herself in. Like, that's fine. We know she has the Force, and it's a weird way for her to use it. It's something we haven't seen before, but, like, whatever. I was honestly more angry about the unceremonious killing of Admiral Akbar than that. But it's a movie that takes your expectations and completely subverts every single one of them. And I was one of the people coming out of The Force Awakens like, This movie is just A New Hope with some twists, and this one was something completely different. And if everybody's going to complain that The Force Awakens was A New Hope, but then complain that The Last Jedi was too different, like, what the fuck do you want? Like, I don't understand. Just watch the movie and enjoy it. I like I said, I have some problems with it, and mostly I think the fact that Finn and Rose go to this casino planet and that whole storyline is kind of boring. Like, I love what they're doing. Like, I love them sneaking on the ship and stuff like that. But the casino planet stuff gets kind of boring, and there's a little bit of a forced political message in there. And honestly, I think the character of Rose kind of sucks. Like, she doesn't really add anything to the story, and she does something so fucking terrible that I can't believe more people, weren't complaining about it, which was she fucking stops Finn from saving everybody. Like, he was gonna sacrifice himself, and you have this great moment of, you know, he was a stormtrooper who ran away, and then he tried to run away from the resistance, and he didn't want to be involved in any of it, and he was scared, and he's finally gonna have his moment where he redeems himself. And she just fucking slams into him, and, like, to her, she's like, I'm saving you, you idiot. But it's like, you let everybody fucking down, because now they blow open that door, and he could have saved everybody, and they never would have been able to get to him in there. I mean, until they brought another planet cracker, you know, however long it took him to get one. But it was just absurd, and I'm surprised more people aren't complaining about that. But honestly, The Last Jedi, it's a great fucking movie. I've seen it twice. I'm sitting here fucking dying to see it a third time. So, and it's a beautiful looking movie. Like, I love it. And honestly, to me, it's all the new stuff is the stuff I still really like. I love Finn. I love Rey. I love everything on the island. I love everything with Rey and Kylo Ren. That's all the good parts of the movie. And it's honestly when they're going back to the old stuff that I'm just kind of like, all right, you know, like, I get it, but I'm kind of done with this stuff. Like, I love these new characters. Like, show me more of these new characters. But yeah, so The Last Jedi is my number 2. It's a great Star Wars movie. I don't care what anybody says. I fucking love it. So all right, my number 1 movie of 20. Sorry, I'm trying to find a parking spot here. My number 1 movie of 2017, which has been my number 1 since I saw it fucking way back in July, I think, when it came out, is Atomic Blonde. When this trailer dropped for this movie and everybody was kind of getting a look at it, it was just like, oh, this looks like female John Wick. And that's honestly what I was expecting. Like, I was going in, like, all right, you know, I love John Wick. Let's go see this badass chick do the same John Wick type stuff. But the movie ended up being so much more than that. It ended up being like a real spy movie, and there is a lot of action in the movie, and the action is fucking fantastic. It's very John Wick-esque, but it's realistic. It's brutal. She gets fucked up throughout that movie, and, you know, she is like this like smaller woman kind of taking on these big burly men. So, like, they have to make her fighting believable. It's not just one of these movies like Mila Jovovich is this like really scrawny woman just fucking taking out people in these Resident Evil movies with like one punch left and right. No, like, she has to fucking use like her skills as an advantage against these guys, and it's so fucking brutal. And the ending action moment, which is like her going from the top of a building to a bottom of a building, all in one long continuous shot. I mean, it's multiple shots with hidden cuts, but it's, you know, portrayed as one shot and done very well, is fucking astounding. And I love the movie. I love the story. It's a really good spy story, and, you know, you can see things coming. I guess I was just in a mood where I wasn't sitting there trying to predict the whole movie, and I definitely got some twists, but I loved Atomic Blonde. I think it is the most entertained I've been all year. It is a great movie. It's a great spy movie, and I love spy movies. I could not recommend this movie enough, especially if you love things like John Wick and James Bond. Like, just smash those two together with a female protagonist, and you have Atomic Blonde. And I honestly can't wait to watch it now. And it is a little iterative of other stuff that came out this year. It is fucking the spy version of Guardians of the Galaxy, because it has that soundtrack, and it's going for something like that, so not to the point of comedy, but the movie takes place in the 80s, so there's a lot of great 80s music and stuff like that. And I love the movie. It's got Sophia Boutella, James McAvoy, and Charlize Theron. They're all super great. John Goodman is good for his short time in the movie. It's got a great cast and a lot of awesome, memorable scenes, and I can't wait to watch that movie again. Like, I've seen it twice. It does have some pacing issues because it's not like a super long movie. It's like just over 2 hours, but there is some pacing problems. The movie does feel like it's kind of ending and then it goes on for a little while longer. But all of what's in the movie is very good, so it's hard for me to complain about, like, oh, it feels like I get to sit in this world for a little longer. I fucking love Atomic Blonde. So that is my top 10 movies of 2017, and why don't I just run down the list from bottom to top. Number 10, the Lego Batman movie. Number 9, Blade Runner 2049. Number 8, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Number 7, Ingrid Goes West. Number 6, It. Number 5, John Wick 2. Number 4, Logan. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Number 2, Star Wars The Last Jedi. And number 1, Atomic Blonde. So yeah, there it is. There's my top 10 movies of 2017. As I said, there's some movies I still need to see, so this list will probably change throughout early 2018. Like, some of these on the bottom of the list might go up, and then other stuff might go off. I did forget a couple honorable mentions because I had I think just one. But the Power Ranger movie is an honorable mention for me. I had a lot of fun with that movie. It's not perfect, but I had a lot of fun with it, and it's something I would want to see a sequel of, to see them improve it. I hear rumor that, like, since the movie didn't do amazing box office, like, it did okay, but I guess they sold like an astronomical amount of toys, so they still might get a sequel, and I kind of hope that's the case. I hope they do it a little better this time. But I love the cast they have. I want to see more of them, and I want to see how they evolve it. So that is my top 10 movies. Now, so a little talk about what's to come in 2018. Obviously, I've been pimping it out for a little while, but the next movie I discuss will be RoboCop 2, the comic book version. I also still want to do the Devil May Cry movie, so that'll probably be the second one. I have some new features coming up. I want to do a segment that I am stealing from an old movie website called Screened, where they used to do a feature called Defending Your Movie, where you take a movie that you really like that either is not really well received or you hear a lot of people kind of shit on, and you defend it. You just kind of say, hey, this is the movie, here's why I like it. These will probably be some of the mini episodes, because I don't think there's like a lot, like they wouldn't be very long episodes, so they'd probably just be some mini episodes. But I think that's a lot of fun. I love doing that stuff because I am a person that loves a lot of movies that a lot of people don't really care about or kind of hate. One of my go-to examples is The Chronicles of Riddick. Yeah, so that'll be a new feature. I also put out a Twitter poll of if people want to hear me have to watch a movie considered like really terrible and do like a commentary for it with a guest, and basically force us to sit there and watch these bad or questionable movies and kind of just give our opinions on them and like record the journey through the movie. And you know, I got a bunch of yeses and no votes on that. And by a bunch, I mean, I think like four people voted, but that's a yes. So that is a feature that will probably come. If you want to suggest a really bad movie or a movie that you think might be fun to hear me try to get through, you can send it to us on the Twitter or on email, shelvedfilmpodcast@gmail.com, or comment on the YouTube channel or Facebook. Yeah, so that's something that's in the works. And I also want to, you know, I kept talking about this throughout 2017, but never did it. I want to do some movie pitches where we just sit there and kind of pitch a movie and try to, you know, jokingly or seriously, however the guest wants to take it. I know we've joked around about doing a Darkwing Duck movie pitch, like a live action Darkwing Duck. So that is something I'd actually like to actually do in 2018. And yeah, what was that? I was just about to say something else. Oh, the final Star Wars commentary track with my wife Amanda, where she is going to watch Return of the Jedi with me, And that'll be our last Star Wars commentary track. We're not going to do the prequels or any of the sequels or anything like that. She's not really, she's not a big fan of Star Wars, but she wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted her to see the original trilogy, so that's where we're going to stop. We're going to stop the original trilogy. Maybe I'll convince her in the future to watch like key scenes from the first 3 prequels. But yeah, so that's kind of our foreseeable future. We got RoboCop, we got Devil May Cry, we got the Star Wars commentary. And then I am going to be sending out some scripts. I already have some scripts out to people that I need to follow up on and get those scheduled for recording and sorted out. But that's going to be it for today's mini episode, which actually ran like an hour. So, but I haven't been around in a while. So, and top 10 lists are fun. I might actually do some of the bad movies I saw of 2017 as well, to maybe kind of warn you away from some of the stuff that I saw that I thought was really terrible. But in the meantime, that's what I'm going to leave you with. My top 10 of 2017 and a little bit of a look at early 2018. Hopefully I'll get RoboCop up this weekend. We'll see how that goes. We did have another small sale at work, but hopefully this will just be like a 1 or 2 week thing and not like a month and a half thing. I did look up the Golden Globe winners just to kind of throw that out there, but I don't really have a lot of opinions on them because I haven't seen a lot of the movies that kind of swept the Globes. So when I see some of those, I'll have more to say about it. But that's going to be it for today's episode. So be sure to hit us up on all those social medias, Shelved Podcast at Twitter and Instagram. You can see the Instagram. I post some stuff on there. I'm more active on the Twitter and my own Twitter at AdventCrash. Honestly, I post the most on there. So if you're not feeling like you're getting enough out of those Twitters, you can just follow my personal one. And be sure to email us on any of those things I talked about or anything you want to talk about, or even if you have a script you'd like to send me, at shelvedfilmpodcast@gmail.com. Obviously the Twitter, YouTube is open for all that, whatever you want to do. And I still want to do this live stream, so be sure to check us out on Instagram or let us know where you think the best place for me to stream a Q&A is. Or if you got some cues, just send them to the email. I'd really appreciate that. I really want to get into that. And to all the new listeners, hi, welcome. Sorry, you may have downloaded a bunch of episodes and then there hasn't been anything new for a while, but I hope this was enough to kind of wet the whistle for the coming year. And everybody who kind of has been sticking around waiting for the next episode, thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who supported me throughout 2017, all the new friends I made on social media and because of the podcast. And here's to 2018, and hopefully it's a even better year than we had. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you for the next episode, which will be RoboCop 2.